Okay, hello everyone. We are live here with High Counselor and our guest today, Boogie. We are so excited to have him and get to talk to you about just some insights into landing a big tech role. So we are going to give everyone just a minute to kind of get logged in, make sure that everyone has access, that we are live on LinkedIn, live on YouTube. As we wait for everyone to get connected with us, I'm gonna let you all know where I'm joining you from. So I am located in South Georgia. If you want to, feel free to drop in the chat where you're joining us from. Boogie, where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining from Istanbul, Turkey.
That's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
How wonderful that we can connect and be so far apart, but be able to share wonderful information with viewers from all over. So guys, feel free to drop in the comments where you are joining from. I'm going to make sure that we are live on LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to just either drop in the comments or confirm that we are live, that would be great. Let's see here. So yeah, feel free to just drop in the comments where you are joining from. I'm getting ready, Boogie. I'm getting ready for a hurricane. I've got a hurricane coming straight towards me. So
Oh,
I'm glad
literally
that
a
this is
hurricane.
happening. Yeah, literally a hurricane. Yes, for real. So thankful that this is happening today and not tomorrow, because this time tomorrow, I might not even have power. So definitely thinking about everyone that is in the eye of that storm as you all are tuning in. Just know that we are praying for the safety of those that may be impacted. All right, it looks like we are live, that we've got some people joining. So we've got Toronto, Canada being represented, San Francisco, Miami, Florida. Dominique is joining us from Nigeria. That's amazing. Chicago, San Francisco, Buffalo. Lots of different areas being represented. That's great. All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and kind of dive into some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. First, I'm going to share with you all just a little bit about High Counselor. So we are a career accelerator. We've got a 4-week training program that's going to cover super important topics and concepts that are going to help you be prepared for the interview process. So we're going to go over behavioral HR, technical interviewing prep. We'll have all of those sessions available to you. Our team will optimize your resume, that LinkedIn profile, and really just provide you the support that you need from start to finish. So for prepping for those interviews, landing those interview calls, and then getting to celebrate with you when you land that job. Our instructors and our one-on-one mock support is so beneficial. We're going to help you simplify that networking process as well. Really just help you feel more comfortable and confident as you apply for positions. We have automated email networking for candidates. We also have an automated job application tool, which is really great. We're also able to provide direct referrals for our candidates. And then one of the most unique services that High Counselor has to offer are those real world projects. So we have those in both data science and software. So make sure you keep up with our LinkedIn page for those live projects. We also have an internship opportunity for candidates that are all over the world. The High Counselor program is specific to candidates that are in the States, but if you are looking for an internship, make sure you check out our website for more information on that. I'm going to be dropping some links at the end of this webinar for you all that will include information on the High Counselor program. We'll be able to provide us some feedback, both Boogie and I, some feedback on today's webinar. So lots of good things that I will share at the end of this session. If you're interested in learning more about High Counselor, I know this was just a quick overview, but we do host info sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. which means we do have a session this evening. So I'll drop the link to that sign up as well. Our next cohort begins on September 5th, so definitely keep that in mind as you consider applying, get those applications in. And yeah, so just take a look at our LinkedIn as well as the website for more information. So as you all know, and the real reason that we're here is to focus on landing that big tech role. And I am so excited to be able to introduce our guest speaker, Boogie. He is a software engineer at Hopper, where he is working remotely from Istanbul to boost their
Correct.
European presence. He has dual degrees in biomedical engineering and computer science from Johns Hopkins University. He joined DNAnexus in 2017 as a backend engineer, where he enhanced a leading cloud-based genomic platform. In 2020, he moved to Facebook's connectivity team as a full-stack developer, where he drove internet access projects for developing nations. He then joined Google Search in 2021, where he enhanced the testing and development experience for developers. In addition to all of his full-time work, Boogie also consults on architecture, scalability, and talent recruitment for a Bay Area stealth startup. So we are going to have some amazing content today. Boogie, I'm going to go ahead and
Fingers crossed.
yeah, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. I'm going to go ahead and share your presentation and turn it over to you. Guys, get ready for a really, really great webinar today. We are going to stop in the middle of the presentation to answer some questions. So definitely get those questions ready and drop those in the chat. And yeah, Boogie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kinsley, and thank you so much for the introduction.
Yeah.
I've never heard myself in such a nice light, and I really appreciate it. So today, the reason why we're here is talking about landing that big tech role, which I had the experience of for Meta and Google, then Facebook at the time. And what I thought of this in conversation should be around is more of the mindset of landing that big tech role instead of the practical advice that gets you through the challenges of the interview. Because I believe that once you set your mind to the goal of, landing that role at that big company, assuming they're hiring for the position that you're looking for, it becomes very mental. It becomes a mind game more than a technical challenge. And I'd like to go into the details of it through my experiences. So the very first thing that I want you all to ask yourself if you're on this journey is, what really fuels you? The importance of this question is, if you identify the real reason behind you wanting that big tech role, whether it's something internal or whether it's something external, it'll give you a good guidance on how you can prepare for the future and whether if it's actually the right thing for you to do. An example of the external motivators could be a higher compensation. You're not happy with the money you're getting. You want a lot more pay. You're looking for jobs at Facebook, Amazon, Google. It could be an enhanced status in society. You're looking to be a member of the tech elite. I'm a Google software engineer instead of saying a random company's name. And these are coming from personal experiences, the struggles I had with my own status, with my own compensation. Or it could be something about the perks. You want the ability to go to any office around the world, just be in Chicago, go to Chicago office, be in London, attend the London conversations. These are all external factors. And my personal opinion is that anything external will eventually fade out. That fuel is not long lasting, it's not sustainable. Once you get that pay, once you have the access to the offices, you'll be looking for the next thing. And once that fuel is gone, it's really hard to continue moving. So my personal experience has been, if it's internally motivated, you go much further. And the internal motivation could be something like, I want to be surrounded by really high caliber individuals in the software realm, in the machine learning realm, in the recruitment realm, if you're interested in recruitment. Once you have that internal motivation, no matter who's around you, no matter which company hires you, you'll keep going. That fuel will last. But it has to come from inside. Another good example would be, are you interested by complex problems that you can't see anywhere else? For example, at Google, as part of Google search, the sheer size of the servers, the databases, it's just immense. It's out of this world. And any problem they come across, it's not going to be solved by a Stack Overflow lookup or a ChatGPT conversation. You really have to understand the root cause of it. You have to be creative. And if that's something that motivates you, I think big tech could have some good opportunities for you. So figure out what really fuels you, understand your motivation would be my first advice in this interview process. Once you know what's fueling you, you have to make a game plan. And this might sound a little cheesy, but I think of it like a workout routine. In the beginning, when you commit to this interview process, it'll be challenging. You will have to create time for this process. You will have to, for example, if you used to walk after finishing work, you might want to put that time aside to solve interview questions or to develop a skill. And that's going to take a lot of willpower to change a habit of yours, to move you in a positive direction. So really understand whether you can commit to this work, whether you can commit to this process. And once you make that decision, just create the time for it. Give specific time blocks for it. Let's say you have this 3-hour block that you're going to commit to the interview. Don't slack off and just spend an hour. Spend the 3 hours, get your work done, put in that effort, and then it'll take you much, much further as you're preparing. And don't think of the Google, Facebook interview process as something that you can just jump in and figure out. There's a lot of preparation around it. There's a lot of preparation around the interview itself. You'll be involved with more than 10 people throughout the process, the initial recruiter, the the person that you have the interview with, the shadow in the interview. And then you have this on-site with lots of people, one after another. And then they all come together at a board meeting discussing who's going to pass, who's not going to pass. So a lot of people invest their times for you to be inside. You have to invest that time as yourself. So make your plan and apply to various roles. Don't limit yourself by just this one specific problem, one specific goal. Apply. Think of whatever that might be interesting to you, that's relevant to your past experience. Apply. Give it a chance. Doesn't have to be Google, doesn't have to be Facebook. Just apply, see where it leads you, learn from that process. And learning from the process is extremely critical while preparing for the interview as well. I'd like to say, face your fears. And the fear that I'm referring to here is, I personally had this situation where there is this problem. For example, mine was around these really simple binary search problems that are disguised as something else. That is disguised as a person dropping an egg, trying to find the right floor which the egg breaks. If when I was looking at such problems, I would freeze. I wouldn't know what to do. And the problem itself wasn't really hard. And I knew once I figured out it was a binary search, it would be easy for me. But for some reason, I would be stuck. And I just kept postponing solving that problem, kept postponing until a point came where, in an interview with Palantir at the time, I had this really basic question as the very first question, and I failed. I failed miserably. 50 minutes trying to write binary search. I even knew it was binary search, I just couldn't. You have to understand that this interview process, it's a very personal thing, and you have to tackle your personally hard problems, not the hard problems that lead code tags or the hacker rank says it's hard, but the problems that you find hard. And if you confront what intimidates you, you're going to grow at a much faster rate than solving any questions. Um, I've seen people who solve 10 hard questions a day, but they never focus on that one problem they can't go get over, that they would freeze. So I recommend just focusing on that fear and resolving it, facing it, resolving it. And I suggest that if you're dealing with average problems, that's totally okay. You don't have to deal with hard problems unless you're going for a senior role. Just solve the problems, keep moving forward, confront what intimidates you. The other important thing is when I was in college and I was applying for jobs out of college without any experience, I brought my resume to the career office. And what they told me was that my resume needed some spicing up, some more impressive looks, and it had to look a little more bulky. What I understood from that conversation was it's okay to lie a little bit. It's okay to exaggerate a little bit. And that's what I did with my very first resume. I think it was more impressive than my current resume because I just exaggerated everything to the extent that it was unbelievable. But I didn't even realize at that point. I was just going for the most impressive thing. And it did not serve me well. I had this interview with Apple Health. It was a stealth piece of the company at the time. And the interviewer, she looked at my resume and she said, "Tell me about this specific thing." It was about this project that I told that I did with my teammates, which in reality was like a solo effort, which I did all on my own. And she said, "How did it go with your teammates?" Exactly the thing that I was lying about, she asked me. And I came up with a story. I told her a story, I told her another story, and eventually I passed the interview. But to the point of half of the things I told her was incorrect. They had no basis on reality. They made sense, they followed a logical flow, and it was enough to convince someone, but it was just not true. So, whatever you do on your resume, be honest with it. Don't exaggerate the numbers. If you're exaggerate, if you're gonna exaggerate the numbers, be honest about it in the interview. If they ask you about it, they say, it's actually probably 1K, not 10K. Once you have that, I don't know, I'm honest mentality, it's gonna get you a much farther position than you're currently in. Trying to figure out, how to impress the interviews, how to impress the Google recruiters. It wins eventually, the honesty that you put in. And this also applies to situations where you have a coding question and you just can't resolve the answer. You need help. Once you struggle, put in the effort, ask for help. It's totally fine. It's more than good actually, because in real life you're going to be stuck and it's expected of you to ask for help. Don't do it. Don't over ask it, but like ask it when you need it. So what I want to say is lying is a very high risk, no reward situation. Once you're caught and the interviews are trained to catch you, it's over. It's game over, and it's not worth it. So, my personal opinion: put your true self, go with the real, honest experience that you have, and impress. Don't try to impress. Just be yourself. That's impressive enough. Just seeing someone being very candid and genuine is impressive enough. I want to take a little break and ask Kinsley if we have any questions.
Yeah, thank you for those first few tips. I love everything that you said. Starting with what is motivating you, right? Like where is that need coming from? All the way to being honest. I think it's easy to tell when someone's being genuine and authentic, and I think it's probably really refreshing in an interview when someone comes with that that mentality, right? Like this is what I've done. I'm really proud of the work that I've done, and
It is
being honest and
surprisingly
open.
rare that you
Yeah,
see a candidate put that forward.
right, right. I love that. Guys, we're gonna take just a couple minutes. Any questions for Boogie? And I'm sure that he's open to pretty much anything. So we'll just take a couple minutes. Okay, so we do have someone that's asking if you can compare Meta and Google.
Okay, I can. In my personal experience, I can. So at Meta, my team was this connectivity team, which was very niche and I would say a very isolated team from the rest of the Facebook. They had this very humanitarian goal of bringing high-speed internet, as opposed to the ads team, which was trying to generate revenue from your attention span. And I really enjoyed the mission of the team. But that is to say, like, it really depends on the team that you're part of. Your experience is going to change immensely. And even as part of the team, the role that you have for yourself, if you're the product designer versus the software engineer, it can be immensely different. What I observed at a very high level is Meta was very number focused, whereas Google was more business focused. At Meta, people could rank each other, comparing each other's number of lines of code changes. At Google, you would look at how many tickets they closed that ended up being in a conversation. So it was very different cultures, and I would say I enjoyed the Google's culture more than Facebook's, though I can see many people enjoying that friendly competition at Facebook being motivating.
Great. Thank you, Boogie. So we've got someone that's asking if referrals matter, right? When applying to open positions in any company, really. Can you give us some insight on maybe the importance of
Yeah,
referrals?
yeah. Referrals matter more than anything. It's so I would say, and this is not guaranteed advice, but I would say if you have a referral versus not a referral, your chances probably go up by tenfold. That's because the referral goes into a different pile compared to the general pile. And there's also the case of the recruiter reaching out to you, which is the best case scenario. When the recruiter reaches out, it means that you passed the initial check. So if the recruiter reaches out, that's your best bet. If you don't have that, try to find the referral. I am not sure to this day if the who refers you matters. I have a feeling that it does. Like getting a referral from a vice president versus a software engineer probably matters, but I'm not sure how it matters in the professional sense. They probably still look at both resumes and decide whether you pass, but you have much higher chances.
Thank you. Thank you. And that is something that that we stress, at High Counselor too, being able to grow that network and put yourself out there and build those connections so that you can have that referral. So much of it is that initial networking and just building those relationships. Wayman, one of our viewers, has a question that Boogie, honestly, I was thinking too. So you were dishonest in this interview, right? You
Yeah,
were fudging some of this experience, and did you
yeah,
get the gig? And if so, how did that turn out?
yeah. So I think it gets more mystical from that point on. Everything worked out, all papers signed. Then my student visa didn't allow this extended period work.
Wow.
And like you can say that everything seemed right from the beginning. It was
Right.
open, like they knew I was in that situation. It
Hmm.
was supposed to work, but it just didn't work.
Wow.
And to this day, I don't know how, but it didn't work. I didn't get the gig.
I'm a big believer in that whatever is for you will not pass you. And so that
Yeah,
sounds like one of those stories where it was not meant to be.
no, it was not meant to be. And yeah, I went into a significant depression following that failure.
Mm,
But now it's just so obvious to me.
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you for that. We've got a viewer that's asking how to land interviews with big tech, and that it's almost seemingly impossible.
Say it again. What is the question?
Yeah. So how to maybe even get your foot in the door with landing an interview opportunity with big tech?
Yeah, I think it was easier when I was applying. It was before all this freezing of the hires. Even like the early days of COVID, companies were more open to recruiting people. I think the only thing that you can do is just be constantly applying to the roles. Like the system, when you make an application, the system keeps track of all your past applications as well. And some random recruiters, they keep going through the list. If you have something that they can work on that sticks out to them, you have much higher chances. But that's mostly it. Like if you have a referral and it's not working out, chances are you're not there for that role. Maybe it's not the right role. Maybe it's not the right time. But you just gotta keep pushing. There's no easy answer to landing the interview.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got a few more questions that we'll get through, and then we'll go back to the rest of your presentation. And don't worry, to our viewers, we are going to have time for an additional Q&A at the end. So if I don't get to every question now, we definitely will. But Boogie, do you have any advice for new grads trying to land their first role straight out of university?
Yeah. My number one advice, leverage your university's network. If you have alumni that you can talk to, find them, talk to them. I got my first job at DNAnexus through an alumni connection. He was at the career fair, and when I shared my experience with biomedical and computer science, they only interviewed me one round, which is like extraordinary. Normally you go through multiple. In this case, they liked my background. They knew me personally, face to face, so I had much higher chances. If your university doesn't have such a network of alumni, you can still leverage tools like LinkedIn to find the people that you can potentially have connections to and reach out to them. That's another way to find good contacts. Like when a random person reached out to me on LinkedIn, looking for a referral to Google, if the message is not too much copy paste, if it had some soul in it, I would respond. And I referred many people that way. I don't know if any of them got in. I didn't get any bonus for it, so they probably didn't make it, but I still referred them. So if you're looking for cold messaging, make it as warm as possible. Don't just copy paste. It's not gonna work. Like all these people, they're very busy, and they want to vouch for a candidate that can get into the place, and that's your best bet if you don't have the college network.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to ask this last question because I think it does really pertain to the first part of your presentation. So we have a viewer that's asking about you getting stuck in procrastinating, and if you have any advice or tips on just organizing your time and maybe what that should look like in terms of applying to full-time positions.
Yeah,
Plus
I procrastinated for 3 years. As part of DNAnexus, I wanted to join the big tech, and I just kept procrastinating. I couldn't just sit like before getting the job. It was much easier to sit down and practice. Once I had the job, I only had so much time in my hands. Like I could work the whole day, and then I had just few hours for myself. That's how I viewed it. So I never had time. But I noticed that applies to everything. Every habit, every hobby, every event you do, you have to commit some time to it. If you want this role in this big tech, you have to commit some time to practicing the interviews. Because it's also interesting, like once you practice, you see resources, you come across people that you can reach out to. It's not just you sitting down and coding. It's a social process. You get to meet other people. If you're on forums, you meet other people, like-minded people who are trying to go through the same thing, and you make connections. So if you commit to it and push yourself to build a habit out of it, it'll be very easy. I would say consistently having 10 sessions was enough for me to get back on the track, to join Facebook and then Google. And then to Hopper, by the way. It was also a process. When I moved to Turkey and could no longer work with Google, I had to go through the same interview process, this time with a lot more stress, but I had to sit down, do the work, and it worked out.
Great. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to you in the rest of the presentation. We do have more questions coming in. Keep them coming in, and I'll be back at the end to review some more questions.
Sounds good. Yeah. And I'll switch gears to more of a practical side of things, whereas initially we talked about the mental side of things. So the next thing that I want to touch on is how to be a good coder, coding like a pro, as they say. And it really comes down to the fundamentals. If you're trying to solve problems like binary search, BFS, DFS, dynamic programming, you have to have your foundations in place. And these foundations you don't learn in school. You learn some of it in school. You may get an understanding of what a memory is like, what an array is like. But what I refer to as foundations is this intuition that you have of the software. For example, when you think of a while loop, if all that you think about is while a condition do this, then you just have a memory of it. And it's not going to serve you much in the long run. Whereas when you think of a while loop, you think of a condition that doesn't matter how many steps you take, continues until you reach the end result. Then you start viewing it differently. And then when you open up a simple problem of a binary search and you look at the code for it, if you see a while true, then you're scared of it, because binary search in itself has to be a limited number of steps and you can't really make it unlimited. But the code can work. With a while true, you can still make the binary search. So you need to have your fundamentals and internalize them, really understand them. What is going on with the code? It's kind of like the movie Matrix. You have to feel the flow. And like everything, reading code is an art. Like writing code, reading code is an art. Not everyone can read code, as not everyone can read poems by Shakespeare. But once you're able to read code, it develops your intuition as well, because you see in these beautiful ways that people handle these complex situations, and the way they create their variables, the way they name them, the way they use types in certain places, but very functional programming in some other places, and the intentions behind all these choices. As you internalize these, they'll serve you far more than the interview. So think of the interview process as the starting line. You're just trying to get to the starting line. Once you join the company, that's where the real run begins. And the interview process is nearly 1/1,000,000th of what you will experience in the real job, in the real bugs, debugs. So get your fundamentals right and really understand the core concepts. Don't worry too much about the really difficult, weird problems. Focus on the simple problems. Understand the binary search, breadth first search, why the breadth, depth first search, why the depth. What are you trying to get to? What does that root mean in a situation like that? Don't memorize it. It's not going to serve you. That memorization, you change the question up a little bit and you lose the whole thing. You can't really go back. It's one way. But once you internalize it, you change the code and you still read the same thing. It's really weird, like the way it works. Your brain, although the code is different, is still seeing the same thing, which is the real source of it. And as you become more advanced, then you internalize things like dynamic programming. You have to redo the same stuff over and over again. Object-oriented software engineering, you think in terms of classes and structure. And now you have more tools to work with. And then you can scale things up. You have multiple servers running, and then you can multi-thread a single server to do multiple tasks. But slowly and surely build that up to become a pro coder. And that's going to serve you incredibly in a real interview process. Now, if you're going for more advanced roles, then you have the system design, which when you look at online resources, it seems like a very simple thing. You have this question of build the Twitter, and everyone goes and says, oh, I have an agent, I have the server, I have the database. That's just scratching the surface. That's like memorizing the binary search. Don't ever try to memorize what the system design is. Try to internalize it. And I came up with this personal strategy of attempt first and then learn. I had scenarios where I just kept watching videos of system designers online. You have incredible stuff on YouTube. And when I had the real question, I just couldn't write anything. I didn't even know if I start with the user or if I start with the server. I didn't know which way the arrows would go. It was a waste watching so many things, learning. If had I attempted first and then asked myself the question, now is this gonna work? Could this be any better? And then I look it up, I would have gone much further. And I did this later down the road. Not with the very first things at DNAnexus, but like at Facebook, Google, now at Hopper, I'm getting more and more into it. And unlike coding, where you can become a pro much more easily, system design is a mastery. Think of it like levels you have in the game. You have a level 1 system designer, level 2 system designer, level 20 system designer. And the way they approach the problem is even different. From the very beginning, you can tell if someone who has more mastery versus someone who has less by the way they interact with the question, by the requirements they ask, by the estimations they make. So attempt, learn, and that's how you can get really far. And one really useful thing that I saw a few of my friends did was have a friend interview you for a system design who doesn't have any experience of system design. Give them the question, give them the ideal scenario. You have online all these scenarios and questions, and then ask them to ask you the question, and then you do the thing. And they can just look at your diagram, compare it to theirs, and just tell you, what could you change between the database and the cache? What could you do to the servers? Can you get rid of them and do something else? And slowly but surely, you will be growing in a way that you can never grow by watching videos of these expert people doing online. It's like you can't really learn how to play soccer by just watching football games. It's just not going to work. You have to kick the ball. You have to play the game. And that's how you grow. So that's how I observed system design as growing. And in terms of system design, it only comes into play for level 5 and above, which is once you have 4 to 5 years of experience. So you don't worry about it out of college. You only worry about it once you have some industry experience. But you might not have any system design experience in the work that you do. You still have to practice. Try to get your hands on the experience if you can at work, but sometimes it's difficult. They don't give you that kind of job as a junior software engineer. So you don't have to worry about it for the first 5 years of your software life. But once you have that 5 years under your belt, people are going to ask you, create this system, tell me the bottlenecks, ask me the requirements, and so on. So that's the system design part. The sky is the limit. I think even if you become like a director of software engineering, they still ask you a system design question, but they expect you to talk about, changing requirements or like what about different technologies, some very specific high-level questions. But it's always in your life as a software engineer once you pass the initial, the coding like a pro test. Then the interview process involves a lot of knowing yourself. And know thyself is this cheesy sentence that I like. You have to understand who you are to really explain to people, communicate to others what you are, who you are. But you have to know it first. You can't tell something about yourself that you are not yet aware of. And what the interview process is, initially they check your coding skills, and then they check your system design skills if there's any involved. But then it's all people skills. People skills involving communication, involving being teammates, involving hiring. They go into your mind and understand what sort of a person you are to work with. Are you someone that I want to work with? I don't have to like you, but I have to work with you. Are you that person? And that can only be answered if you know yourself. What are you reflect on your past? Um, in the past, for example, myself, I was a very solo person, and that's not a good skill if you want to go up the chain. You can't be a solo software engineer for very long. There are some rare cases, but in reality, you're a teammate. So you have to grow your communication skills. And now I love cross team communication, and it really shines bright when I do this amongst the teams. You can tell if someone is experienced in communicating between the teams versus someone who is just experienced with writing some code. Eventually, it becomes a people skill that gets you further down the road. So the better you understand yourself, the more you'll excel in the team environment, the better you'll manage your stress, the easier you will estimate your delivery, and the better you'll reflect on yourself, on your past, on your current situation, and project your future to some extent. What you want, you will know if you'll go down the path of management or an individual contributor, but you have to know yourself. And I'm not saying this in any way less important than coding or system design. Throughout all these processes, as you're facing your fears, as you're procrastinating, know yourself, understand why you procrastinated, what is it that you're fearing, what is it that you would do really well without even trying. Um, like I'm really skilled at scaling things up. I don't try hard for it, it just comes to me. But I struggle with some graph problems. My mind just doesn't work that way. And different people have different abilities, but you have to figure them out yourself. And you can ask for feedback from your fellow teammates if you're already working or if you're just graduating. So know yourself. That's really important. And finally, ask yourself again, having through this entire session, what is really fueling you? Is it the interview process and what you're going to get to in the end? Is it the hype that's outside? Really tap into what's getting you going. And once you have that, like once you know what's fueling you, you can judge how long and how far it's going to take you. It could be a fuel that will last for 5 years. You will push really hard and you will retire early. You will get your home and you'll retire. I have friends who have that excitement in life. They push really hard for the first 10 years of their lives and they're hoping to retire soon. I'm not that type of person. I like to keep my energy steady and slowly build up. So that's my fuel. I have this sustainable source. And I'm heavily driven by people. Some people are driven by challenges. Some people are driven by money. Money is the worst driver. Once you make that money, that's going to go away. And you'll be seeking for more, but it's not going to fuel you as much. So I wouldn't go down the path of making money, that external motivation be my fuel. I'll rather have that internal peace, that family that I want to create, that home that I want to live in as my motivator, if they're going to be external. And if it's internal, if it's something that you love doing, even better. That's going to take you forever. So find an environment where you're valued, and your self-worth is linked to how much you value yourself. Just know your worth and don't discount it. And you'll know if the next big thing is the big tech, or a small company, or a startup that's doing really well, but that has an exciting technology for you. So that concludes my conversation. Thank you so much for listening. And if we have time, we can get to questions.
Yes, Boogie, thank you so much. That was amazing, guys. I hope you just see the value in the words shared with Boogie or by Boogie today, and what a treat to hear from you and to hear your experiences. We do have some questions. People are eager to know your take on a few different things. So we have one viewer, Peter. He asks, as an IT support officer who is transitioning to a back-end engineer, how does he add his volunteering role to the experience section of his resume?
You know, I don't know. I don't know how you put that into a resume. However you see fit. Just put it in a way that feels right to you, not that doesn't feel right to the things that you're looking at. Like, people try really hard to get their resumes in this certain state. It's not really that. It's what's important is it should be coming from you, and it should be resonating with whatever you're trying to put forward. So you can put it at the top of the resume if you want, as the most important thing that you're doing. And people will be curious, like, wow, this person is putting this role at the top of their resume. Let's hear about it. And they'll uncover great things about you. So it's really up to you, wherever you feel right. You can put it at the bottom. No one will ask about you.
I love that. I think so much of crafting your resume is telling a story. And so asking yourself, what story am I trying to tell?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we have got someone that's asking about advice for boot camp grads, as it seems that the market is more favorable to university grads.
I would not say that. It's favorable to the extent that the recruiter values university experience. There are some recruiters that don't really care about the college that you went to. I think if the recruiter has, this is very personal, but I'd like to say that if the recruiter has this yearning for a really high status college that they didn't get into, they value such people more. But if the recruiter is well aware of this bias, which they should be, as through their training, there's no bias towards a university grad versus a bootcamp grad. It's really up to you. Your story, your referral, doesn't matter.
Great, thank you. We have a couple questions on really just seeking some advice on asking for referrals.
Be honest, be from the heart as much as you can. I know it's hard, like sending someone a message from the heart and then expecting that reply and it never comes. It's sad. I've been through it. But it's part of life, Not everyone has to care about your feelings. Not everyone has to care about your next job. But if Kinsley said it really nicely, I just forgot how she said it. But if it's for you, what was it, Kinsley?
Yeah, so whatever is for you will not pass you.
Exactly. So if you do this from the heart continuously, and if there's something for you out there, they're not going to pass you. They'll look at that message. And that happened to me multiple times with various people.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that we talk about with High Counselor and with automating that networking, with the initial outreach, is that there are so many different scenarios that can happen, right? Like, I mean, you could get ghosted, you could have a conversation that begins and then fizzles out. You could have build a relationship that sustains, and maybe they can't refer you, but they know someone that can. And so really just putting yourself out there, it can be scary. You're being, anytime you ask for that referral or you put yourself out there, you're being
Yeah,
vulnerable, and that's a scary place to be.
it is.
It's a almost feels like a direct rejection, but understanding that you don't, all it takes is one person and one relationship. And if kind of like you said, if you're being, true and authentic and sincere in it, then you're truly building valuable relationships that can last a long time and support you through career changes and all sorts of different scenarios.
Mhm.
What is the value of Coursera professional certificate in getting a big tech role in relation to a standard university certificate? Any difference there?
I don't know. It's really how you create that story again on your resume. How you put it on your resume, how you explain it to the recruiter if they decide to look at your resume. Don't try to impress the recruiter.
Mhm.
Put real stuff down there. Some people are biased towards college degrees for some reason. I don't know. My wife is a dropout, and she created $1 million company herself. I'm still a worker. I get my salary because of the degrees that I have. I don't know. Some people can go really far um, with their college degrees. For some people, it doesn't matter. Like they can do whatever they want. I think it makes the job a bit easier. There's a lot of investment that you make in college to the relationships, to the school itself. It's a lot of money compared to a Coursera certificate. But if you know how to code and if the recruiter is interested in your story, you'll get the job. You'll get the interview. It's really up to them.
One of the themes, Boogie, that I'm hearing and seeing a lot is that, we tend to have this idea of, to get to one place, there's a certain path that we have to take.
Mm,
And that isn't the case. We
no.
all bring different stories and experiences and perspectives to every situation that we encounter, whether
Mhm,
it's a resume or networking or even solving this puzzle. Um, and there is no one right way. And so
no.
getting away from that idea, I think, can be so beneficial, because you can start to look at the experiences that you have and the skills that you possess that are unique to you and
Mhm,
leverage that.
mhm. And one thing I observed in my own journey is that I had this interesting thing about uh, my interest in Taekwondo and how I created this little device that measures my leg movements. And that got a lot of people's attention when I was applying for jobs out of college. So if you have something that can get people's attention, I think
Mhm.
that's going to serve you more than the college degree or the certificates. Like people are going to ask you about, they will want to ask you about it. And that's all you need, like someone needing to ask you about yourself. And then it's your time to shine. Of course, by being honest still, I wasn't with Apple and it didn't work. So remember that. Even if it's so impressive and it makes sense, it's just not gonna work. Um, but find that interesting piece of it and just display it. It's part of you, um, and it's gonna go a long way.
I love that. I love that. We've got one final question, and I think it's a good one to kind of wrap up on. So we have a recent grad that has a couple years of experience, and it's just asking what the expectations for a big tech interview would be, and if you can give us any information on hiring trends.
Mhm. So I'm not sure about the hiring trends. I know that they're still hiring, and a few friends of mine they joined Google recently, so people are still getting the job.
Mhm.
Although my friends were more experienced than a few years, so that might be to their advantage. If you have more experience now, it's definitely easier. It was always easier when you have more experience because your skills are less common. But if the position that you're applying to is open and existent on a website of Google or Facebook, then they're hiring for that position. And don't think of the competition as 20,000 people applying for this role, but think of yourself. Like, are you a good fit for that role? And if you were to be interviewed, do you possess the necessary coding skills, system design? With a few years, you won't be as system design. Maybe at Facebook you will. At Amazon, maybe. It depends on the role and the company. But do you possess that skill set? And then make the application. If you don't possess the skill set and apply, it's still not wasted. Like, you can see what happens when you go through that process. You will never be fully ready, but you can do your best to be most prepared for the role. And I'm not in the best position to tell you when it's a good time to apply, but maybe High Counselor can, with their consultants. I don't know. Can they, Kinsley? Like, if you're in a position.
Yeah. So one of the things that we are happy to help with, and one of the services that we provide includes career counseling, and really just prepping candidates for the application process and that interview process. So what we want to do is make sure that candidates are feeling confident and comfortable moving into that next step. So yeah, absolutely. If you want to learn more, have questions about that and what we can do, I'm happy to share that as well. So.
Yeah. So go ask Kinsley about the application side. I'm happy to talk about the mind side of things.
Love it. Boogie, I think this is so refreshing to have in a time like this. Like I said, it just you become so strategic in making sure that you check all of the boxes, that we forget to add the human side of it, I think, to applications. And so, and the interview process in general. And so I just appreciate your take on it, and for you sharing all of this with us. Really, really refreshing to hear.
Yeah. And I appreciate everyone who just took the time to listen. Like, this is part of your game plan, and you just scored 1 hour of practicing for something, because it's difficult to listen to all the stuff that I say that is not pleasant, like facing your fears. Like, who wants to face their fears? They want to get a job. But that's part of the game. You have to commit. What? Yeah, it's part of the game.
Yep. All right, guys, I've got some links that I'm going to drop. I promised you that I would. First, I want you all to feel free to drop your feedback at the form below. This helps both of us so much. Just know how today's session went. What did you find valuable? What would you like to see from High Counselor in the future in terms of webinars? So feel free to give us that feedback. I am also going to drop the sign up for the info session tonight. So we are going to be hosting the info session for High Counselor at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You've got the sign up for that. If you would like to apply to our upcoming cohort that begins on September 5th, I'm going to drop the application link as well. Maybe you've already attended an info session and you already have a good idea of what to expect from us, and you want to go ahead and send in that application, feel free to do that there. And then the last link that I want to drop is the one to register for our next the Real World Live project that we'll be hosting through LinkedIn. So feel free to sign up for that as well. The last thing that I would just encourage you to do is to connect with us on social media at High Counselor 2022 on Instagram or through LinkedIn. That's just a great way to stay engaged with our content, to know what events we've got coming up. We just hosted a job fair. We continue to do webinars and give you valuable insights from industry professionals like Boogie. So feel free to follow us there as well. And I will just give one last shout out to Boogie. Thank you so much again. Great content. Any closing comments as we head out?
I wish everyone the best. And just remember, if you keep pushing, the right thing for you will work out. Just keep going. It'll work out.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Bye.